All right, we start with breaking news out of New York City, where President Trump says the New York case against him is falling apart. And we need to be fair about this. Whether you like Donald Trump or you hate Donald Trump, today is just kind of icky. It really is. My mother's watching, so we are going to do our best for the PG-rated version of Stormy Daniels on the stand. We're going to take you into the courtroom, how the jury reacted, why the judge got angry, what Trump allegedly said about Melania, how Stormy's story has changed radically since she joked about it on Jimmy Kimmel. But porn star Stormy Daniels talking about her alleged tryst with Donald Trump might not be the most important thing that happened today. A judge down in Florida indefinitely postponed Trump's trial on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. So if we zoom out to the 50,000-foot level, the case in New York, the Alvin Bragg case, is not going well for the prosecution. The January 6th case brought by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith is on the rocks at the Supreme Court. Now an indefinite delay on the documents trial, and the Fani Willis case down in Georgia, well, that's a mess to do. And today, after court, Trump seemed almost jovial.
A very revealing day. As you see, their case is totally falling apart. They have nothing on books and records, and even something that should bear very little relationship to the case. It's just a disaster for the DA, for the Soros-backed DA. It's a disaster.
Stormy's going to be back on the stand Thursday for more cross-examination by Trump's lawyers. Maybe to tell us what this case has to do, or what her testimony has to do with the case. Because remember, Trump isn't on trial for having sex with a porn star, or for allegedly paying Stormy to stay silent. It has to do with the accounting of payments that were made to Stormy Daniels. So far, we haven't gotten to that. And yeah, there is a huge ick factor here. Even the judge seemed uncomfortable, and rightly so. Like it or not, President Trump, though, is the first president in history to go on trial. And today, a porn star is the first of two star witnesses in the prosecution. It would almost be funny if it wasn't sad. So with that, my apologies to Mom, and we press on. Joining us now, Jimena Bustio, NPR politics reporter, who was inside the courtroom today at the Trump trial. Tom Dupri, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under President Trump. And we're going to start now with Jimena. Thank you very much. You've covered a lot of trials and been there. If you just removed that there was a former porn star and the former president of the United States testifying, this was just a normal everyday trial about an accounting irregularity, would anything in the courtroom be all that remarkable? Okay. Tom Dupri, to you. I talked to Libby Dean. She was our reporter who was inside the trial. And she said, I would say the agitation from the defendant when a key witness is on the stand is not out of the ordinary. The reason all this is out of the ordinary, though, is because it is a former president sitting in the chair. Tom, I'm going to assume you can see me. That in the sense is, hey, this is all pretty ordinary stuff in a courtroom, and then you add in porn star and president and everything changes.
Well, I don't think there was too much that went on in the courtroom today, Leland, that could be described as ordinary. Today was an extraordinary day by pretty much any measure. And look, to be candid, I'm not sure it was the prosecution's finest hour. In my judgment, I think they probably went a little too far in getting all this testimony out of Stormy Daniels that, as you correctly noted, made today really a not safe for work day in the New York courtroom. I would think that there may be some jurors who actually came away from today's proceedings maybe with a bit more sympathy for Donald Trump than they had coming in, because I think some of the jurors might have questioned the same thing you just did, which is to say, how is this relevant? This is a case about allegedly fraudulent business records and accounting and that sort of thing. It doesn't have to do with this actual affair. So from my perspective, I think the prosecution might have been better advised, if they wanted to call her to the stand, to get her to come in quickly, say, yeah, we had this affair, and move on, rather than have nearly 4 hours, and it's continuing, but so far 4 hours and counting, of what has been very, very graphic testimony.
Jimena, give us what you thought was the most interesting, not testimony, but body language. What was the relationship between Stormy Daniels, Donald Trump, and the jury as all of this discussion about what allegedly went on in the hotel room in 2006?
For that delay earlier, there seemed to be a little weird with the technology, but Stormy Daniels didn't really look at the former president, and even when asked to point him out in the room, she seemed to look up and over, kind of indicating that he might not necessarily be in her line of sight. Now, most of the witnesses have not necessarily made eye contact with the former president when they are testifying against him. The jury seemed to be kind of looking back and forth at times, also looking down. But there were some interesting dynamics also with each of the lawyers that were questioning Stormy Daniels. When the defense came up to question, there definitely was more tension in the air as she was being questioned about the details of her story.
Yeah, and you think about some of her testimony, and obviously we have to read it because we don't have cameras in the courtroom, which would have added a whole new level to this whole thing. I just thought to myself, great, I put myself in this bad situation. What do I do? I guess that's at the moment she felt as though Donald Trump was propositioning her for sex. Afterwards, she testified, my hands were shaking so hard. Stormy Daniels testified that when speaking with Trump, he kept interrupting her. Trump showed her a magazine with him on the cover. Someone should spank you with that. She then rolled up the magazine and swatted him with it. After that, she said he was, quote, much more polite. There's different parts of this story, Tom, that jive with what she said in the past. The magazine thing is pretty consistent. But to your point about the prosecution and credibility, her whole thing about how she was shaking and she had this out-of-body experience, how do you square that with what we're about to play, which is her appearances on late-night TV joking about it? Take a listen.
Okay, enough of this. Stormy, show me on the puppet what he did to you.
A righteous mission to make America great again.
Kinky. The door to the hotel opens, and what is Donald Trump wearing?
Silky pajamas.
And they were black pajamas,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So he immediately looks like a Halloween pumpkin or something.
I'm pretty sure I thought he was channeling Hugh Hefner.
So, Tom, give us the strategy, because you're a courtroom brawler. Give us the strategy between impeaching her as a witness and letting the prosecution just sort of lie in the bed they've made.
Yeah, I think the strategy here, Leland, is number one, you point out to the jury all of the inconsistencies in her testimony over the years, and she has been all over the map. There was an affair, there wasn't an affair, here's what happened. And I think the defense can and has so far done a pretty effective job of telling the jury that her story has evolved over the years, to say the least. I think the other thing that you can do as a defense lawyer, and the defense team has done, is point out her motives here. In other words, she has been very upfront about she was looking to get money, she wanted to earn more money, and so I think by planting that seed in the juror's mind that she has, a possible bias here, she admitted on the stand that she hates Donald Trump, she's admitted on the stand that she had a motive to get money. All of these are points that the defense can make to just plant seeds of reasonable doubt in the minds of the juror about whether everything she's saying is 100% truthful and accurate.
I appear to have underestimated my mother's response. She just texted me, double ick. Jimena, you're watching the courtroom and these things are happening. So much has been made about the judge. So much has been made about the judge by Donald Trump. Is the judge kind of losing control of the show, if you will?
I wouldn't say the judge is losing control of the show, but he did tell the prosecutors that they did need to control their own witness a little bit more and acknowledged that Stormy Daniels may have been a difficult witness at times to control. The defense was lobbying a lot of objections to testimony that was graphic and lengthy in details and side comments, even some jokes at times. Many of those, in fact, were sustained. It was constant sustaining of objections. And, he himself said that there were probably some things that were better left unsaid in this testimony.
Wow.
And so it was his way of kind of taking back that control, asked the prosecution to have a moment with the witness before bringing her back after lunch. And they did. And after that, it was a little bit more of a consistent, easygoing testimony without as many objections and sidebars as we saw in the first half.
Fascinating. Really fascinating. Tom, just from a legal standpoint, is salacious and tawdry, I guess, is talking about Stormy Daniels' testimony is. The idea that we set up at the top that all 4 cases against Donald Trump, this case is not going well, I think, by any reasonable and objective standard for the prosecution. January 6th case, and as you and I have talked about, is at the Supreme Court. Very unlikely to have a trial on that, the Jack Smith case before the election. Now the Mar-a-Lago documents case, no trial before the election, indefinitely postponed. And the Georgia case still remains a mess. If you're Donald Trump, who's just heading down to Florida for tomorrow, which is the day off from court for meetings about your presidential campaign, this is a pretty good day.
It is a pretty good day, Leland. And look, I think you're right. It seems extremely unlikely from where we sit at this moment in time that any of those other 3 prosecutions against Trump are going to go ahead before the election. And keep in mind that the reason for that, I think, is a few things. One is that in some of the cases, yes, the judges want to take more time to make decisions and make sure they get it right. But the other thing is that in many cases, it's because of the prosecutor's own decisions. The reason the Georgia prosecution is in limbo is because of Fani Willis's egregious decision to have an affair with one of her prosecutors. The reason why that the Florida case is in limbo, I think it would be moving a lot faster if Jack Smith had charged Trump in Washington, D.C. instead of in Florida. That was a strategic decision Jack Smith made. In the January 6th case, he took a long time before he even brought the charges. So we are where we are, but I don't think you can entirely blame it on a slow-moving legal system. I think at least part of the blame, frankly, lies at the feet of the prosecutors.
Jimena and Tom, I want to thank you both for dealing with a rather unsavory topic as delicately, adroitly, and professionally as possible. Hopefully my mother is still watching. Thank you both. We'll talk soon. Thursday, Stormy Daniels is back on the stand. All right. What about the Boy Scouts without, well, boys? The Boy Scouts are now just scouts. Is it woke politics or good business? And why Republicans keep playing the victim. Whatever happened to leaders like Ronald Reagan, who own their mistakes?
Let me say I take full responsibility for my own actions and for those of my administration. As angry as I may be about activities undertaken without my knowledge, I am still accountable for those activities.
Today, the Boy Scouts of America, an institution that's lasted more than 100 years, produced as Eagle Scouts some of the great leaders of America, cease to exist. They're going to now be forever known as Scouting America. In case you missed it, the important distinction is the removal of the reference to boys from their name. Roger Crone, who took over last fall as president of the Boy Scouts, or I guess now Scouts, told the AP, in the next 100 years, we want any youth in America to feel very, very welcome to come into our program. Some of the notables from the past 100 years of Boy Scouts include Gerald Ford, Neil Armstrong, Steven Spielberg. Maybe it's no surprise, though, participation in the Boy Scouts has plummeted in the past decades. 1969, over 4.5 million boys were active members. 2022, that number has fallen to just over 1 million, and that's with a far larger population. In other words, the Boy Scouts had to do something. This may be their Hail Mary. Somebody who knows a lot about Hail Marys, Joe Theismann, Super Bowl champ, Life Scout, NFL's Man of the Year in 1982. It's great to have you. So many people are making this about, whether it's woke and whether it's too inclusive and on and on and on. If you look at this just from a pure business decision, right, this is something that the Scouts, I guess, in a way, had to do, right?
Well, Leland, first of all, thank you for having me. This isn't something that just happened today. I mean, we've had young women inclusive in scouting for quite a while now. And as a matter of fact, we have a lot of different gendered individuals that are in scouting right now. So it's a part of what we're looking at as the times go, the things that we're involved with as a society today, and the inclusiveness that I think we're seeing in so many different aspects and areas. But we can't lose sight of the value of scouting and what it does for young men, young women, to be able to have an opportunity to get out into nature, to be able to learn trades, to be able to work together, There's so much value in scouting in so many different ways. The fact that it's going to be called Scouting America versus Boy Scouts of America is just one of those debated issues, but it shouldn't change what scouting actually provides to young people.
Fair enough, it shouldn't. I guess the question is, will it change? Because we have seen so many organizations in the efforts to be inclusive and in the efforts to make everybody feel good, to lower their standards, right? And I think you know more than anybody, especially in athletics, the importance of having winners and losers, of keeping high standards, of pushing people to achieve their best. How does this not become a slow and slippery road of sort of devaluing the values and the honor of the Boy Scouts?
I don't think it devalues it at all. There's so many merit badges and so many opportunities available for both young men and young women in so many different professions. I mean, you could learn how to be a welder. You could learn how to be a steelworker. I mean, there's so many different things, so many opportunities that are provided through scouting for young men and young women. I don't see where it's going to devalue it. I don't see it really backing up. I see it expanding to an opportunity where it is a more inclusive aspect of life, where you have a lot of different things that have happened. I mean, there have been female astronauts. There have been Eagle Scouts that are astronauts. So, I mean, it doesn't, I think, hurt the core of what scouting is trying to accomplish.
All right. The people who are sort of the least happy about this, interestingly enough, are the Girl Scouts. And this goes all the way back. You're right. This has been a slow change, 2017 from the Atlantic. Why do the Boy Scouts want to include girls? The organization's decision overturns a historic and defining separation, raising questions about timing and how they differ from the Girl Scouts. In the earliest years, Boy Scouts' teachings were imbued with a more frontiersman ethos connected to the national narrative of moving west, while the Girl Scouts were a more urban movement, teaching both domestic and outdoor skills. This is Tammy Proctor, who wrote the history of scouting for girls. And you think about who wrote that, the Atlantic of all things, unhappy about the inclusivity of the Boy Scouts, which I'm trying to figure it all out. You have an answer for that?
I really don't. All I know is that I don't, you can't really say, what is, applies to the Girl Scouts, what applied to the Boy Scouts. I think there's so much more that's inclusive today and so many elements and opportunities for the young people that, we've crossed from that one side to the other side into a joint venture, I guess you could say, to provide so much opportunity in every element and in every aspect so that when a young person wants to enter into scouting, that there is a menu of opportunities there to be able to work on a merit badge, to want to become an Eagle Scout. I think one of the great things about life is, again, what can you accomplish? I mean, we see a lot of people out there just sort of living average. Well, if you get into scouting and you want to become an Eagle Scout, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to work hard. Yeah. You're going to have to get merit badges. There's so much. I think that is really where the value is of scouting in every element.
All right. Fair enough. You are a strong advocate and an excellent ambassador for something you really believe in. It's good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Just a reminder, it is Tuesday, May 7th. 104 days, Democrats nominate Joe Biden as president at their convention in Chicago. New proof ahead. Biden supporters may want to give him an off-ramp.
We have news this morning from NBC News that the campaign is looking to shorten its speeches. Biden's general election strategy is less is more. The president's aides are seeking to tighten his pitch to voters with shorter, crisper speeches.
We are 181 days out from the general election, 104 days from the Democrats converging on Chicago, Illinois for the Democratic convention in Chicago, where at the DNC they will nominate Joe Biden, an event that is typically one part celebration, one part coronation. The Democrats are looking at the calendar with dread. Polls show their candidates tied with the GOP frontrunner, sometimes down. Donald Trump, even his usual cheerleaders, meaning Mr. Biden's usual cheerleaders at NBC News, have taken notice of President Biden's, shall we say, difficulties at on the campaign trail.
We have news this morning from NBC News that the campaign is looking to shorten its speeches. Biden's general election strategy is less is more. The president's aides are seeking to tighten his pitch to voters with shorter, crisper speeches. To be honest with you, Quentin, I think that's a very smart idea. I think
for everyone.
For everyone. For everyone.
Huh. Interesting laugh. Geraldo Rivera's here, NewsNation correspondent at large, Peabody Award-winning journalist. Geraldo, I want to draw your attention not only to NBC, but to Jon Stewart. He was at a comedy tour that was not recorded. I know liberals don't say Joe Biden is old. Don't say what people see with their own eyes. You can say it. He can't hear us. I know you know how effing old he is. I know you don't want to say it because Trump is scary. But he, meaning Biden, is so blank old. When you watch him on television, you're nervous, aren't you? Is this the way of NBC, MSNBC particularly, who supports President Biden, Jon Stewart, who's certainly liberal by any standard, maybe giving President Biden an opportunity for an off-ramp?
I don't think so. I don't think it's quite that dramatic. But I hearken to the advice of Michael Steele. I'm going to keep my remarks shorter and crisper because I'm only 8 months younger than Joe Biden, and I definitely feel like I'm losing it. It's a terrible problem that the Democrats have, that maybe the nation has. He is unmistakably 81. He'll be 82 when he gets inaugurated if he prevails over Donald Trump. But he seems like an old 81. I hate to say it. I feel that myself. I know how metamorphosis, whatever that verb is, I have changed in recent years. There's a big difference between 78 and 81, I think. And, it's unfortunate. I don't know how compos mentis he is, behind the teleprompter. I worry, as Jon Stewart jokes, I worry every time he steps up there that he's going to lose his place and the teleprompter is going to stumble over something or, he's going to look lost, need someone to shepherd him off into the wings. It's tough. He might be just as crisp as ever in his inner mechanisms, but he does seem old. Trump, on the other hand, who's an old guy, is. Go ahead. Yeah,
Geraldo, look, okay, all I'd say is there's no way Joe Biden could pull out metamorphosis, okay? And I won't ask you to spell it, but there's no way he could pull it. This is the leaks that were coming out of the White House a couple of months ago. I want to get your thought on this. The leaks were, he's 81, he's fine now, but who knows what he's going to be like in 4 years, right? That was sort of the whole comment that was coming out of the White House. But what's most fascinating to me, and maybe I'm just an inside baseball guy because I've lived here in Washington for far too long, but this White House never leaked. The first 2 years of the Biden administration, the first year of the Biden campaign, it never leaked. Nothing. And now it leaks like a bad rowboat at your grandmother's house. What do you make of that?
Well, I haven't spent any time at all with any Biden people, but I was very close, as you know, to former President Trump, and I was in that White House. And talk about leaks. That was like a flood that you cover. It was terrible. He couldn't get anything going without being washed away in this wave of malevolent gossip. But in terms of Biden, I think that the real danger is that something, God forbid, happens to him, a stroke or something like that. It's you worry about how frail he looks. Maybe he's full of zest internally. Maybe the White House surgeon is absolutely right that he's in the in the bloom of health. I don't know. It just doesn't seem so.
The prime of 81?
Right. But now Trump, on the other hand, seems full of verve and bluster. He's today with the Stormy Daniels thing, he weathered that storm. I think that this trial is falling apart on him. He may, he's a campaign monster. He's going to get out there. He's going to go to all those swing states they're always talking about, where tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands will determine the course of the election for the entire nation. But he seems more physically competent than Joe Biden.
Look, you can't argue that in the split screen. You mentioned swing states, which I'm glad you brought up, because typically the convention for any party is in a swing state, right? 2008, Barack Obama went to Denver, Colorado, which was turning purple. He turned it blue. 2016, Trump went to Ohio, turned it red. Hillary Clinton went to Pennsylvania, didn't turn it blue, but certainly hoped to. And yet, Joe Biden is going to Chicago, which Chicago and Illinois are as blue as you get. It's not in play no matter what. But it's drawing attention to a city where vehicle theft is up 37%, robbery up 23%, aggravated battery up 6%, criminal sexual assault up 3%. Boeing, Caterpillar, and the Citadel, which is one of the largest investment firms in the country, has relocated. 7 killed, 31 wounded after this weekend. Mass anger over housing by illegal immigrants. And now there is protests all over Chicago parroting Hamas talking points. What is it about Chicago that Democrats want the media focusing on for 4 days?
That's an excellent question. And I think that even though you listed it last, I think that the potential for disruption is an issue that they should really think long and hard about, because 1968 is not that long ago in my recollection, and it was totally it gave the election really to the Republicans. It was so dysfunctional, the Democratic convention. Dan Rather getting pushed around, all kinds of ebb and flow of humanity there. It really distracted from the Democrats' message, and it swept into office Richard Nixon and so forth. It's a rough road for the Democrats. I don't know why they chose this particular path, and I think that it will haunt them. As of right now, it's not the issue. Chicago, you listed the litany of woes, but Chicago is a muscular kind of place. It's got a real identity. I think that they'll get a grasp of that, and maybe Gaza will blow over. Maybe. They will be a permanent ceasefire. Maybe there'll be something that calms the American street, but not right now.
You said that. I only got about 45, 50 seconds left on the other side of this, but I want to play for you a soundbite out of Harvard. Take a listen, and then we'll get your reaction.
Okay.
The student intifada has engulfed the entire country. It is changing the conversation, expanding the realm of possibility. If these administrations run their campuses as tyrants, those campuses will become ungovernable.
You really think that this is going to end simply with something happening in the Middle East? Hasn't President Biden lost control of his own party?
Well, I don't know about that. I thought you were going to ask whether he's lost control of the American street or American campuses. Gaza is a real wound in the side of mankind. It's terrible what's happening. It was terrible what happened on October 7th. It's terrible what's happened for these hundreds of days since. Today, women and children being killed by Israeli bombardment in Rafah. I hope that the pressure of the world will get some kind of calm there, but I'm not entirely sure that can happen. Unlike Chicago, the Middle East has whatever you think it's going to be worse than you think, and I worry that the collision between Palestinian and Israeli will be something that infects the whole world. I said when it happened, when October 7th happened, that anything can happen now, from just a spasm of violence to the end of the world. And I mean that. To me, that is the most pressing issue on the planet today, and it really needs addressing. The kids are nothing compared to, in terms of violence and anarchy, to the George Floyd riots or the Rodney King riots.
A fair point.
I got arrested myself in Washington, D.C. in 1969. People protest. I understand that. This is the cause du jour. It's it's like hip to be concerned about Palestinians.
You're right. You're absolutely right that we got to keep the numbers in perspective. Although, thank you very much as always.
Leland,
we appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, Kristi Noem. Proof perhaps the Democrats aren't the only ones with problems. Kristi Noem has spent her book tour conducting a master class in becoming the victim. How to play the victim, George Will, on why politicians, both sides of the aisle, stop taking responsibility.
I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong.
tryouts for that job. Celebrity Apprentice VP season have turned into a grievance festival, a victimhood Olympics, if you will. Kristi Noem wanted so badly to be vice president. She's the governor of South Dakota. She wrote about shooting her misbehaving dog as if it was a good thing, and then went on a book tour.
I've not heard
I win everything that I do.
Support you on shooting the dog.
I'm honest. Well, I've heard a lot of people.
Nobody.
I've heard a lot of people that say, "Listen, this was 20 years ago. 50 states
with emails.
50
we put this on the show.
Have a law on the books.
You're going to be on, and we've been consumed with emails saying, "I won't vote for this person. I won't vote for Trump if he puts her in the vice presidential spot."
Well, I'll tell you, Stuart, I'm sorry you're not hearing from real Americans that live on farms and ranches, because if every state has a law in the books that allows for animals that are killing livestock and attacking people to be handled this way.
Okay. And then she went on to complain about the interview. Noem doubling down on the dog story. It's not the only controversial episode from her book. She's also refusing to back down from accusations that she made up a meeting with North Korean President Kim Jong-un, something that is demonstrably untrue.
You write about North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. You've been questioned several times on this in the last couple of days because you've issued a retraction. You said that it shouldn't have been in the book, this passage, that it was a mistake. Why shouldn't it have been in the book? Is it untrue?
No, what I said is that when this was pointed out, that we made an adjustment to what the content was in the book. I've met many world leaders around the world. I've been to the DMZ. I've been traveling for years and years talking to world leaders. Just that name should not be in the book, and I'm not going to discuss those personal meetings.
The gymnastics of vocabulary. NewsNation senior political contributor George Will is here. What is it with people who want the most powerful job in the world who are unable to say either I was wrong or I'm sorry or take responsibility?
If you say you're sorry in American life, anything can be open to you after that. If Nixon had said, what a mistake at Watergate, he'd have finished his term. Instead, Kristi Noem goes on television. She's playing the victim. A lot of Americans think Cricket was the victim, the dog she shot.
Yes.
Leaving that aside. And she says, asked, did you meet with the dictator of North Korea? She says, I went to the demilitarized zone. That's really not responsive.
Small differences, not taking responsibility. And look, you make a good point about if you ask for forgiveness, the American people are remarkably forgiving and love comeback stories. For example, Bill Clinton. Take a listen.
I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part for which I am solely and completely responsible.
When you're looking to Bill Clinton for moral clarity and how it should be done, we've all crossed the Rubicon. What is it, though, about Republicans who have now adopted the Democratic sort of philosophy or I don't even know if you can call it philosophy, the Democratic playbook of becoming victims?
Well, it's unbecoming of Republicans. They say, truthfully, academia disdains us. They say, truthfully, the media distorts it. They say, truthfully, that Hollywood caricatures us. So what? The American people don't want to hear the complaint. Are we allowed to say manliness on television these days?
I believe so. Twitter's going to burn us, but that's fine.
It's unmanly to behave this way. The American people don't want to hear people saying, I want to be the leader of the free world, but I'm being picked upon, and I'm sad.
Is it I guess you could even say it's unpresidential, maybe even.
Yes.
Maybe another way of putting it. The person, I think, who probably created this in the most obvious way is Donald Trump, who, to your point, may have a point when he says he's being picked on unfairly as it relates to his many trials. Here we go.
I don't mind being Nelson Mandela because I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it for a reason. Doing it for a reason. We got to save our country from these fascists. They always said Lincoln, nobody got treated worse than Lincoln. I believe I am treated worse. This is a continuation of the single greatest witch hunt of all time. We have a rogue judge.
These Democrats want you dead. You realize that?
Yeah, because I'm the one that turns things around. I'm the one that had the best economy in history. I'm the one that had the best border in history. I'm the one that had the low energy prices, and we were respected all over the world. And
Donald Trump has an uncanny understanding of the American public and of his supporters. Why does it work?
Because it is so audacious. That is because, I mean, what he just said, their best economy in history, not true. Best border, I don't know what that means. But he has this kind of forthrightness, or what is considered forthrightness on his part. People say, at least we know where he stands. And that's a big deal in politics these days, or in any day.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough. Where does this go from here, to bring it back to our opening segment of the trial? Donald Trump has been expert at playing the victim, and it's helped him. Every time he's been indicted, he's gone out and said all 4 times, I am being persecuted, I am Mandela, I've been treated worse than Lincoln, and every time his poll numbers go up. Legal observers, by any fair estimation, will tell you that the prosecution's case in New York is going terribly. If he is acquitted, or if he is a hung jury, doesn't that prove his point that he is the victim of some type of political witch hunt?
Yes, and his point is right. The fact is, he's being prosecuted by a man who ran for office saying, I'll get Trump. He didn't specify about what. He's trying to get Trump for interfering in a federal election in which Trump was a candidate. That's sort of what candidates do, is try and influence federal elections. And they're saying he lied in his bookkeeping. Well, it's not a public company, it's his company. So he was lying to himself while trying to influence an election in which he's running. I mean, it does not pass the laugh test.
Well, we'll see what the jury says. Mr. Will, always good to see you, sir. As always, thank you. A majority of Americans say the border and immigration is the #1 issue right now in America. So a 16-year-old high school kid asked about it. How simply asking about the border got him suspended for 3 days. Ask Americans what their #1 concern is, and the overwhelming response, as we have covered on this show time and time again, is immigration. 55% of adults in America say it's their #1 concern this election season. So when 16-year-old Christian McGee asked a question in class about the term illegal aliens, he did so because a majority of Americans are concerned about the issue. For that question, the school suspended him for 3 days. The school said his question about the term illegal alien was equivalent to a racial slur. After returning to school, his family says he was ostracized, bullied, and faced threats. Fast forward to today, Liberty Justice Center filed a lawsuit against the Davidson County School for violating Christians' rights to free speech, education, and due process. Christian's mom, Leah, is with us, and Liberty Justice Center's education freedom attorney, Dean McGee, also joins us. We appreciate you both being here. And Leah, I just sort of want to break this down because, look, as a young man, I perhaps said some things in class that were not taken very well. And was threatened in various ways. But things are different now because everything is on your record. Suspensions last forever. Let's look forward. What does this mean for Christian if they're not willing to take the suspension off his record?
Well, for Christian, it means that it could hinder him. He's a 10th grade boy getting ready to go into his junior year in high school, and he's going to be applying for colleges. And this label that was so unfairly placed on his record is going to hinder him. And not only that, but the fact that Christian is raised in a household that instills the beliefs and the following of Jesus Christ, for him, that hurts even more because he knows in his heart he has zero racism in his heart.
And that's what the term illegal alien has been deemed by the school to be racism. The Carolina Journal, no board response. An official at Davidson County Schools said the district could not provide details on a student matter. Dean, is there anything to be made of the fact that we've watched videos around the country, both at high schools and at the college level, of people chanting vile and hateful things at Jews? talking about killing Jews from the river to the sea, on and on and on. And everyone then talks about protecting their free speech, but for some reason, a question about illegal aliens, there is this deafening silence about a child's right. Why is that?
I couldn't tell you why that is, but I will say that the name of the game for this administration at Christian school has been hypocrisy. You know, if they are punishing him in the hope of looking progressive, they've failed miserably. And I'll tell you, one of the things that Leah suggested at her very first meeting with the assistant principal is, if anyone was actually offended by this, let's have a meeting. My son, that boy, his family, and we can discuss this. That is restorative justice. That is supposed to be the progressive modern trend in how discipline is done in schools. And instead, you have this administrator that treats this kid like, like he said the N-word, and that's the administrator's own term for what Christian said.
Wow. I mean, it speaks for itself. Leah, any idea why they're picking on your son like this?
I have no idea. We loved Central Davidson High School. We were excited for our son to attend Central Davidson High School. We just moved to the area in August, so Christian is a new student, and he has excelled at that school. His grades are good. He is a member of, or was a member of their track team. He made wonderful friends in that school. And so the fact that this has happened is beyond us. We have no idea.
All right. Well, I know the lawsuit's coming tomorrow. Let us know as things go on what you hear from the school and what you hear from their attorneys. We'll look forward to having both of you back. Leah, Dean, thank you both. We appreciate it. And as I said to you, Leah, I had a mom who fought for me in school. You're doing the right thing. Keep it up, all right?
Thank you for saying that. That means a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it means a lot to your son that you're doing it. Dean as well, that you're doing it as well. Thank you. Thank you both. We wrote about this first in War Notes. It's our daily newsletter. Comes out at 4 p.m. every day. It is free. Subscribe at warnotes.com. Some interesting thoughts coming your way tomorrow. Here's Chris.